I feel like I need to defend my scene's honor here, because this is just turning into a bit of a dogpile.
Like in groups, always look.
I'm cutting you off here. I'm cutting you off. Cutting you off. He said G2's winning it. He said G2's winning it.
We need to wait till the next EU tournament, which could be in about 10 years now.
Take it with like a grain of salt.
No,
but
that's
that
no
being
fun.
said,
Take it super literally.
Spike defused.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Press 4 to Defuse. It's kind of our year-end Press 4. I don't know if we're doing one next week, but we're coming up on the end of the Valorant year, and I am joined by the crew, one of whom I've just realized Cam somehow climbed up a little bit, so I'm just going to fix you real quick, Ryan. Oh, and fixed. No problem.
Is
no,
that better?
no, don't do that.
No.
Not
It
like
was
this.
literally your whole Discord box had climbed. So I was seeing, I think, the top of Sam's head and the bottom of yours. It was confusing. Don't worry about it. I'm a professional producer here at Press 4 to Defuse. Very legitimate. But we've got some fun things to get into this week. How are we doing, everyone? Sam, you're now newly geographically located. How'd that all work out?
Bro, that was the most stressful weekend of my life, and it'll take the whole episode to talk about it. All I'm saying is it took me 5 days and 4 flights, like 4 different airlines, to get to South Africa. But I made it. I'm here for the holidays. I'm chuffed. So, yeah, it's going to be good.
I had a great time. I had a nice chill birthday, and the weird thing is, especially this year, you have 2 tournaments which we'll talk about clashing at the same time. And apparently, who was it that was saying that there's going to be? Oh, it was Chris J, who we're going to be talking about as the coach for Renegades. Said that there's another tournament before the end of 2020 that's a big one that they're prepping for. So I don't know what's wrong with TOs at this time, but yeah, it's busier than usual, which is annoying.
The end of 2020 is in a week.
Yeah, that's
This is not smart. Christmas is in 2 days. Like, what?
I'm curious about that one. We'll see. We'll see.
To wait for January.
Unbelievable.
I don't know. Well,
Anyway.
it's always interesting. I understand the idea behind TOs, which is that everyone has free time right now, but the flip side is everyone has free time to spend with their families. Now, admittedly,
There's a reason for your free time.
a lot of people can't spend them with their families this year, so I guess I can see the argument. It's all very odd, but, you know, people gonna fit them in where they can, I guess. But let's talk about the tournaments that we had happen, because that's what we're here to do on Press 4 to Defuse. We're here to talk about tournament results. We're going to start out with the Cloud9 to the Skies tournament. This was a charity tournament, to be fair, so it was a little less serious. To give some context here, we're looking at the bracket to give people some context on what these teams were. The T1 mix was honestly barely T1. Sean Garez, Nothing, and Mo were part of the roster, and then it was Dazed and Skadoodle rounding it out.
Yeah.
With the actual T1 players. The Mythicals was Myth's motley crew. We had Myth, Drone, I think Dapper was in it. Plouful, who I don't know who Plouful is, but that's somebody. And then there was one other pro.
Roka.
Oh, yeah,
From
right.
Space Station.
Roka.
Yeah.
Headshotting and such. Roka.
Ah, yes.
So, and then everyone else in here was their actual team, I think. Right?
Yeah. There was someone I didn't recognize from FaZe, unless I'm just losing my mind. Tenpo? Has he always been on FaZe?
No, he is not.
Didn't think so. It's and I always forget this dude's name. The one CS player on FaZe.
Marv.
Marv. He was not there. No.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
It was all the other Overwatch players plus one.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's what we had happen. I mean, the end story is that NV won. Any real conclusions we should draw from this tournament? Ryan, you want to start us out here?
To the Skies one. Sorry, I was massively distracted.
Yes, to the Skies one.
I mean, I'll be brief. I
end of
never
year.
got to see this one. It was my birthday on that weekend. I was casting some CRS thing, which took up a good portion of the day. And there was also the other tournament that happened this weekend, pretty much happening at the same time, which had more serious connotations. This tournament was a charity one, to be fair. It was for a great cause. But I think we mentioned it last week. I'm very much feeling the fatigue of a lot of the Valorant esports stuff, especially after First Strike. So when there's a tournament that's full of mixed teams and there's like different affixes that the games need to play by, it's fair to say that I wasn't concentrating on it as much as I would have been, but I was more enjoying Pittsburgh anyway because of all of the drama in there, and also a lot of the teams that decided to show up in this tournament too.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about
But
that.
it was for a great cause. I like that Cloud9 did it. It was a great way to get more people into the esports with people like Myth and Shrug Gears actually participating. More stuff like it, but I think just with everything going on these past couple of weeks, it was just a very chock full time and literally clashing with another tournament going on at the same time in the region.
I do think there's one
really
thing...
weirdly timed. Sorry, go ahead.
I think there's one thing we need to talk about, and I'm going to pose this question to you, Sam, first of all. Yes, it was a charity tournament. Yes, it was fun. Yes, there were a bunch of mixed teams in it, and it was all very goofy. But also, both Cloud9 teams got dumpstered. Cloud9 White lost 13-3 to the Mythicals, which had some very good players on it, but also had Myth and Blueful, who are streamers. I think I actually don't know that much about Blueful, but Myth certainly is Coach Myth. We're all familiar with his antics.
Yeah.
Cloud9 Blue lost to the T1 mix with Mo on it. Mo, come on.
That's kind of toxic, man.
I come from the CS scene. Mo has been a meme for a long time. He's Mo. Everyone knows what he is. You know, he's the funny man entertainer. He's not terrible at FPS games by any measure. He was pro back in Source. I think he competed pro in CS for a while, but it's been a long time since he played very seriously. So, should we be concerned, Sam?
It's hard to say, right? Because bearing in mind that it's for charity, how seriously were they taking this tournament? I think you need to remember that with it being a kind of a for fun thing, a lot of teams generally won't be taking it as seriously as they should be, which I think is a factor. I'm not saying it's like we should write it off entirely just because of that, you know? And again, like Ryan, I didn't really get to watch much. I saw a little bit, and it was mostly because I wanted to see Uber casting, because I'm like a huge fan. He's like my casting idol. So I, popped in. And my biggest takeaway from the tournament is he can cast anything, but I think I already knew that.
If you're watching this, Uber,
without having...
You got a fan.
Without ever having actually... Oh, he knows. Don't worry about it. Without having watched really any of the games and seeing how the teams played, I think it would have been a factor, but I don't know if it accounts quite so heavily, because I think Cloud9 White lost like 13-3 or something.
Yeah.
And then Cloud9 Blue was 13-8.
Yeah.
Which is not a great scoreline by any means. And then you also have to bear in mind that it is fun game modes, right? It's not a simple, it's not your usual thing. I think Ryan was saying one of them was like, you play the game, but you can't stop running. You know, things like that are going to have an impact. So you're not taking it too seriously. It is just a fun, silly game mode. How much that correlates to their results, I'm not too sure, but I don't think it's something we should be taking super seriously.
All right, that's fair. Ryan?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think there's a lot of concerns around both the Cloud9 teams for very different reasons. I think for C9 White, they should be fine, considering, this week we saw Cloud9 and T1 drop in their Korean roster, and it raised a lot of questions on if Cloud9 could only have one team, are they just going to drop their white roster and just stick with the guys over at Blue? And it sounds like they're able to have two teams if they're basically sort of full gender difference ones, which again sort of makes me go, I don't know how I feel about that. I guess it's good that we get to see Cloud9 White supported as an esports team. They can practice full time, they can take it seriously and not feel like they're just being left out to the wolves because of the changes. But I feel like there's just a lot of negative connotations that come with something like that. I want them to still compete, but I don't know. It's a tricky one, and I think their recent form of results doesn't bode well for them either. So even if they weren't taking it seriously, it's kind of like that reputation is now starting to get a bit out of hand. And really the only time that we saw the good stuff out of them was during First Strike, where they lost to Slimy Boogerman, sure, but they went on to do some great things. But everything since the UMG qualifiers has looked worse and worse as time has gone on. So it's not impactful at all, but it doesn't help for sure.
Yeah, it's just...
Yeah, and I mean, I think the fact that we've singled them out, like you look at, for example, Renegade's Complexity. Renegades beats Complexity, and we don't kind of zoom in on that. We don't like put that under a microscope. It's just it was two teams and, one team won. But when it's Cloud9 and we're just like, because they kind of have a history now of being scrutinized, you look at that scoreline, you go, well, there's Cloud9. There they go again, losing another game. Can they do anything? There's like a lot of context behind it.
I will say though, when Renegades beats Complexity, those are two teams who are, first strike caliber teams, or made it deep in the qualifier, one beating the other. When a mixed team of streamers beats a team that's a salaried professional, that's to me what raises eyebrows, even if it's goofy. But it is what it is. Whatever. We'll keep an eye on it. Put a pin on it when we get back to serious tournaments. Speaking of serious tournaments, we do have one to talk about. We'll hop over to that Pittsburgh Knights tournament. There was drama galore. I actually did some casting for this because they needed a last minute fill for one of their community casters. So I popped in and followed some of the games on Saturday, which was fun. But I guess we should just give context on the drama, because this is the thing that was on everyone's lips, talking about
funniest drama ever.
Oh God. So the controversy, I'm going to lay it out. I did not screenshot all of the tweets because there are so many tweets that I just didn't want to go down this. If you want to go down this road, go to GB James.
It's quite the rabbit hole.
James O'Connor, whatever his Twitter handle is, go to that and follow all of the tweets. Basically, Timon played Built by Gamers in the quarterfinals. It was the last match of the night on Saturday. Timon then saw, and more specifically Ninja, then saw a clip from that match where a guy was saving in a 1v4 and appeared to flick onto someone's head behind a wall. You can watch the clip for yourself. You can find the clip for yourself. To be quite frank, if that's what says someone's cheating, then we're all cheating. It was the lamest clip I've ever seen in terms of accusations. But it was against Critical, who's apparently had accusations before. He's apparently been cleared by Riot, specifically 3 different times. The issue this time was Riot's on holiday break, so they're not clearing anyone specifically. So you couldn't ask Riot directly. So instead, the Pittsburgh Knights made the announcement that they wanted to cancel, or they wanted to disqualify Built by Gamers because of the concerns raised pending an investigation. Now,
it wasn't even that, right? Like, it wasn't even Pittsburgh making the decision. It was just the CEO that took it into his own hands.
Yes.
Took the fall for it. So he
overruled the TL.
Yeah, he took autonomous control away from his org and the TOs running this tournament, which is most likely going to be another, like tournament or face it, those kind of different third-party organizations that take the handle, or even Nerd Street Gamers.
Well, no, this was the Knights running it. It was just his.
So it was them running it.
It was them running it. The thing is, the guy who was running it, SFX Jasper, who I know fairly well, it wasn't his decision. It was overruled from the top. But it was the Knights. They were running the tournament. They were organizing everything. They were
right.
It was in-house, and they made the call to DQ them. Community outcry because it was the dumbest decision ever. And then they made a pretty weak walk back and undQ'd Built by Gamers. But then Built by Gamers decided they didn't want to compete and forfeited anyways. So,
to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sure. Okay.
To an extent, I do understand the decision to DQ, right? Because you are concerned about the competitive integrity of your tournament. And you don't want there to be an instance in the future where you have a tournament and people are saying, oh, but they let cheaters play. You don't want your results to be undermined because, oh, but they let a cheater play. So you can't get the response you need from Riot. Mm-hmm. I have not seen the clip. But again, I am not qualified in any way, shape, or form to make any judgments on whether a person is cheating or not. So even if I had watched the clip, I can watch a clip of a cheater and go, wow, that guy's really good. I have played games of Apex Legends where cheaters have flicked onto me and I go, wow, this guy's really, really good. And everyone goes, he's got an aimbot. And I'm like, really? So like, you don't ask me these questions. But from a TO standpoint, to an extent, I do understand why that decision was made, particularly because you can't get a response from on high. So, and you've got someone who, yes, he's been cleared 3 times, but he's been accused 3 times, to the point where Riot has stepped in and had to clear him themselves. So again, that's like a double-sided coin. Like, are you saying, well, he's been cleared 3 times, clearly he's not cheating? Or is it, he's been cleared 3 times, he's been accused 3 times, a little shady. So, just putting it out there.
Right?
I feel like with stuff like this, it's better to be right in the long run after the fact, as opposed to trying to preemptively strike people based on a hunch. And I feel like it was Knights making that decision because they have somebody like Ninja breathing down their necks, threatening to take it to socials if it doesn't go their way. Let him take it to socials. It's not nice to have a lot of 13-year-old kids yelling at you, but when you get around to the fact the Riot check it and go, no, this guy's cheating, it's all clear. Ninja looks like a tosser. His audience will look worse. And at least you know that, like, let's say Build by Gamers went on to do really well in this tournament and it turns out the Critical's cheating. They can sanction them, take back their prize money winnings, and BBG will probably never get invited to a tournament ever again. I really don't think that what could have been gained from Pittsburgh Knights making this decision, or specifically their CEO making this decision, dramatically is outweighed by just doing nothing and letting it slide. There are going to be a lot of instances like this, and I get the fact that this guy is pretty known in CSGO, right? The CEO of Pittsburgh, like he's pretty well respected there.
I'll give you some context. He coached Liquid way back when. Right. God, how long ago was this? Like 2016, 2017? He's most famous in the scene for an iconic mic'd up segment where he told his team to go make a play that would make their dicks hard. Just an iconic line.
That is amazing.
One of the best.
That's actually amazing.
Heard. Make a play that makes your dicks hard. No, he did coach. I think he did coach Liquid during their major runs. Some of their more substantial major runs when they were sort of coming onto the map. The Simple era. I think that was all him. Yeah, because Adren was a player and it was pre-Adren becoming a coach. So that was. I mean, he definitely. I don't want to devalue his accomplishments in Counter-Strike. I just wanted to make the meme
but he's
joke.
a bit memed on, yeah. I guess the point is that obviously there's a lot of stuff going on in Counter-Strike, and when you have people like Richard Lewis kind of saying, you know, we don't want what's happening in Counter-Strike to come over to Valorant, that there might be some sort of hero complex coming in, be like, I'm not going to let this happen to Valorant, and he comes in and sort of takes matters into his own hands. It was just unnecessary. I mean, if it turns out that Ninja was, you know, pushing him a little bit, considering, you know, his stature and the ability that he could get when it comes to negative press. But this kind of thing is easy to rectify. It's always going to be gray areas. This isn't going to be the last time that something like this happens. It's very unfortunate the Riot are, you know, away from their computers on a break, which they desperately need, to be brutally honest, when it comes to this year. The meme as well that they went to the Valorant police department of like cheating, which GamerDoc isn't even a part of anymore.
It's just a Discord.
It's effectively getting Kefri to just check the clips at 0.25 seconds.
In CS we have RVAC sucks, which is they think everyone's cheating all the
time. The subreddit,
always.
yeah.
Dan M, Crisp Clean Locks. It was a return to the good old form of RVAC sucks.
I think Build by Gamers did the right thing, though, by forfeiting and just going, like, you know, if there's another tournament from the sounds of it, there's like, all right, we've tested our merit against other teams. We know roughly where we land. We've got stuff that we can work on. We can leave here with all of the praise in the world just for keeping our heads held high and working on the next thing. This tournament wasn't the end of the world for any team taking part. There were some really good showings, but ultimately, I think the biggest winners here are Build by Gamers, and the losers, unfortunately, are Pittsburgh Knights, now that they have this reputation against them.
It's such a bummer, too, because it was a really good tournament apart from that. Like, it was well run. Jasper, SFX did a great job. I do want to say that again. Teams were doing well. We had some good games. We had some exciting games as well. Gen G bested Dignitas in the finals. Like, it was a good tournament run for Gen G. They look better than I've seen them play in a long time. Dignitas looks like they're putting it together. Like, it was a fun tournament to watch. It was just this big old cloud hanging over their heads, and that was unfortunate. Controversy. Fickle mistress.
Lots of it.
I mean, it's interesting that you sort of mentioned Gen G, because I think they looked better, but they still looked... I mean, everybody in this tournament looked questionable, but I like the fact that they were there, because I think you mentioned Dignitas, you mentioned BBG, Mamba Mode, Xset, Pittsburgh, Equinox, and certainly NRG Esports. These are all teams that don't really have too long until we get to Champions of 2021 to get their shit in order, basically. So I like the fact that they're playing in pretty much every tournament that they can. A lot of these guys going into the Nerd Street Gamers monthly, which is this weekend. So if it wasn't busy enough when it comes to tournaments, there's another one from yours truly. But I like the fact that these guys have put themselves out there in these tournaments. And I would say that Gen G looking sharp, but even winning a tournament like this, it's still a bit of a... they don't look as good as they should be.
It's
Diggs
not
the
where they
same.
wanna be.
No.
They want
Right.
to be dominating this level of competition and at the next level of competition. But we'll see. More time to play is certainly not.
Yeah, I mean, there's still time, and we can already see. We're gonna obviously move on to this in a minute, but like a lot of teams have already started making changes. They've kind of isolated some issues they may have had, whether it be with a particular player not being up to the level they want, or like a play style difference, or maybe coaching issues or whatever. Like they're starting to isolate those problems, and they're prepping for the next Valorant year. And I think that's really important. The fact that we're seeing these changes, and a lot of people might look at it and go, "Oh, but First Strike just ended. Why are they making these changes? It's so sudden." But like,
now's the time.
the next tournament is literally around the corner, and you need to start practicing. You don't have time to spend 3 weeks with someone that you're not sure about, that doesn't gel perfectly with your team, and then only then to decide a week or two before the next tournament, actually, this isn't working. We need to find someone else, and we need to get them acclimatized in the next week or two. So this is the perfect time to be making those changes.
Well, speaking of which, we've got lots of changes to talk about. So here we're going to
Yep.
segue into the changes. Here's the first one. Existence to NIP. The Belgian in-game leader, famous for his career in Counter-Strike, both as a coach and an in-game leader, now comes over to NIP Valorant. He's been competing since the beta, but hasn't actually been on a team just yet, and now he is. This one could be spicy. Sam, you want to start us out here?
So I don't know too much about Existence. I know he's been around the scene for quite some time. He played with L'Institut recently. So clearly he's one of the French Belgians. Yeah, there's like 3 different kinds of Belgian. And
French, Dutch, or French?
has been exactly. So there's the 3
French, Dutch.
sectors, and he's one of the French ones. He also played with Fear, with Team Fearoth, started from CS, who were a really fun team to watch way back in day before they kind of got picked apart and fell apart and so on. I haven't really seen what he can do up against some of the more prominent teams, because let's face it, he hasn't really had a chance to play against the more prominent teams. So this is kind of a trial by fire, I guess. It's one of those things where he clearly got scouted out, or possibly there was like a trial thing. I didn't see like an open trial thing. So clearly this is like a scouting thing where you go to him and say, "Hey, we've seen your performance. We want you to come and try out for us," right? And he must have impressed. Despite the fact that we haven't seen him play some of the bigger boys, he did well in his trial, clearly. Now here he is in NIP, and as I said, it's that trial by fire. You said he's come from CS. I don't know anything about CS. And I think you mentioned before we started that he used to coach as well. So he's clearly got the mental fortitude and the mental acuity to be a part of the strategic FPS sphere. How that's going to correlate into playing for Ninjas in Pajamas, who have also needed a little bit of help recently. When we list the teams that have potential and have a lot of expectations on their shoulders, but just haven't been quite living up, and so have needed to make changes to try and get to that point, NIP is definitely on that list. That's going to affect the roster, yeah.
I feel like I need to give a little bit of context on Existence here, just to give more clarity. He is a pretty legendary French IGL, a Belgian IGL, French-speaking IGL. He's been part of some of the best French teams in history. He's one of those people who's always been regarded as a really great mind for the game. Maybe not necessarily the mechanical talent, but he's always been there. And the team that he coached was G2, which was at the time the superstar French scene roster. He's got the chops, brain power wise, and that's what they're bringing him in. They're bringing him in to call for NIP, to give them direction, to give them leadership. That is 100% the move. It's actually really funny from a Counter-Strike background to see Existence signed to NIP. It's just two very you would never have seen Existence on an NIP roster in Counter-Strike, because they're all Swedish. He was purely French-speaking rosters. It's a weird crossover episode from my perspective. Ryan, what do you make of this move?
I mean, NIP have been doing pretty big open tryouts. A lot of the people that they were trialing with got leaked actually through Chihuahua's YouTube channel. So people like Dimasic, who's obviously played it we're about to talk about, with FPX potentially. Brams, who's meant to be going to Vitality, scrimmed with them. You've got Sender, who's from Exile. You have got Meadow, actually, from XFPX that was playing it. And so there were a lot of people, and I know Emil's been drafted up a list of like 30 people potentially that they were looking at to either be in that supportive agent role of the Breach of the Sage or an IGL. The issue is with IGLs in Europe is that for the most part, they kind of suck. You have some really unique examples of great people,
Oof.
like Angel, for example, or even
Yeah.
Boaster. But Boaster gets such a negative reputation, I suppose, that he's not very good in the server, which isn't true. But it is typically there when it comes to European versions of IGLs. There are some freak examples, of course, like Lowell for Heretics, but Eccles gets a lot of flack for it. Bonker, especially for Guild, gets a hell of a lot of flack from how well he does in the server. God B as well from Big. There's not many good IGLs in Europe that can also frag at the same time. So Enter Existence, who can do both those things, has done both those things for Linstitute and also started from CS. He's never played the Breach before. He's never played that set of agents, but to be honest, his playstyle should suit them pretty well. And I do feel that this is a great addition. It's confirmed, it's 100% a thing, and it allows plenty of time for Ninjas in Pajamas to get used to their role. If they're not scrimming right now, at least Existence can queue in rank to try out the Breach and the Sage to see what sticks. And I feel this is the best roster that they've had in quite some time. Nip get a bit of a negative reputation with how often they've changed stuff, but to be honest, now is their last-ditch attempt to make something happen here, and with any luck, they want to stay with this roster for quite some time. So I think that this time, it is valid to change it around. The whole Fearoff hip stuff from way back when, bit of a different story, but this is the first real time that we'll see Nip hopefully do some work.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. We've also got JD coming into the roster. I think we talked about that when that was rumored last week. You guys
don't think we did.
What are we making?
We did a lot of speculation, and he may have come up because he was on HSDR, and he was one of the people that Ryan was speculating about, because we did actually bring up HSDR, and like they have like 3 Swedish people, and it was like would fit in whatever. But at the time, it wasn't confirmed as far as I can remember. Now it is. He was their Jet player, Reyna player, perfect replacement for Lucker, I guess. And we kind of mentioned that his replacement needed to be really good. This is a player with a lot of potential. That's done a lot of great things. HSDR, one of those teams, also ton of potential. Really tends to do quite well, but just never quite making it into that upper echelon. And so it's a farm team, much like most of Tier 2, and the best talent will invariably be picked up from that. So it looks like that's what JD is going to be.
Always be poaching. Always be poaching. All right, so we'll see how he does at the next level. But let's talk about Dima. You already hinted at it a little bit, Ryan, but Dima Sick is apparently being reported over to Fun Plus Phoenix. We've got a tweet from Halo himself talking about it. He is the replacement for Meadow coming through. Dima Sick, CS player, former CS player, coming over to Valorant, making that next step. What do we make of this one? Is this going to be the change that Fun Plus Phoenix needed?
I feel very differently about this change. So you've got the difference between Halo and Nell. Nell was the one that reported existence. I feel that this is Dimasic is scrimming with them. I mean, I have a bit more, not so much knowledge, but I guess the hindsight is able to sort of see the reaction from some of the FPX people I know is generally being, this doesn't look set in stone. I know that they were looking at scrimming Dead Fox as well a while ago, and I think a similar report went out saying that FPX are 100% going for Dead Fox. So I do feel that they're trialing him. They would be silly not to, because Dimasic is a great player. He's also in that CIS region, being from Kazakhstan, so he will be pretty good at comms. I'm not sure about his English, but to be honest, it would surprise me at this point if FPX are coming in Russian at this point, considering this is Angel's like full control of the roster. But there is one thing that makes it super interesting, and I don't think we mentioned this last week with them dropping Meadow. We now know the rules of Europe in first or 2021's Champions Series. It doesn't matter if you have a full CIS roster or a full European roster, you are part of the same qualifying status. So it wouldn't surprise me finding out that information if Angel goes, we don't need to have more Europeans than CIS players now. We just need to effectively have the best squad within both those regions. So maybe at that point they went, because beforehand they had to have 3 Europeans, which would have been Zipan, it would have been Shadow, and it would have been Meadow to keep them in First Strike Europe, right?
Yeah.
Now that they don't need to do that, they don't need to hold players on to keep themselves within a region. So that might be one of the reasons why, we never really liked working with Meadow that much, for example, but we needed him to play in First Strike, for example. They don't need to do that anymore, so it wouldn't surprise me if even down the line we get Zipan and 4 players from the CIS region, because it's Angel's doing, right? So that's I don't know whether they're going to go for Dimasic or Dead Fox at this point, but I would be surprised if they didn't go for a CIS player at this point, because there's a lot of people in that region that could certainly come out and be the new Simple. Who knows?
It'd be the Hellraisers reunion if we got Dead Fox back in.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting. He was... he's a player who I always liked watching play, and never really... He was very up and down back in Counter-Strike. Sam, you got any hot takes on Flashpoint? Fun plus Phoenix's move?
How did you get from Fun plus Phoenix to Flashpoint?
I read FP, my brain just fills in the blanks.
Oh my god.
It's been a long year.
CS brain. Anyway, it's been a long year. Oh god. Anyway, I wouldn't say it's a hot take so much, or a take in general. My thing is more along the lines of like, and I mentioned this last week, when Halo says something, pinch of salt, boys. Pinch of salt. Because he's often right. And I am aware, particularly from like the Overwatch stuff, he is often right. Mm-hmm. But he's also often wrong.
I don't think
or like something will change,
things.
You know?
I don't think you can both be often right and often wrong. I think it's one or the other kind of.
You know
what?
I mean,
we're talking percentages, right?
He's wrong enough that it becomes a problem. Like it's kind of like if you have an airline where 10% of the, or even like 1% of the flights crash and burn and explode. It's not a lot percentage-wise, but it's still a lot considering that you're looking for safety. It's similar for Halo. He's not often wrong, but he's wrong enough that it's discredited him to an extent.
Thank you. So in general, I don't trust those leaky boys. And I was just having a little squiz over at the rumors tab on Liquipedia because I think it's the funniest thing ever. And it is still listed as possible, right? So there's like possible, likely, certain, and this is still in like the possible category. So again, pinch of salt. I'm not taking anything seriously until I see something a little bit more concrete. Okay. Yeah, that's basically what I have to say about that.
All right. Well, we'll hop regions. We'll go to the full confirmed things by the orgs. No pinch of salt needed. No seasoning whatsoever. We already got all the full flavor. First all one coming in. Shanks announced NRG Valorant. Shanks to NRG. We kind of knew this was going to happen. He'd been playing with them a lot. Obviously, he's a super talented player. The main concern here is potentially the reason he was removed from Dignitas, which is a little bit of concern regarding his past in the Mountain Dew League. But he has been very good for them. He's been very good when he stood in for Immortals, and NRG made the decision to bring him onto the roster. They're still looking for a fifth player. They've been playing with Infinite, so that could certainly be in the cards. But for now, we've got 4 players on the roster. It's Som, Daps, EU, and Shanks as the newest addition. What do we make of this roster? Ryan, start us out here.
I mean, Shanks is obviously a very good player. Again, it comes down to his reputation. It comes down to what E6 says about him in particular. I don't think that NRG had a particularly strong tournament. I think they look like one of the worst teams at the Pittsburgh event, to be brutally honest. Yeah. But it's more the fact of you can look that rough if you're a new squad, but it's similar to the reputation that Ninjas in Pajamas have got, where they have made needless changes. They've changed what agents certain players are playing, and because of that, you can't get any sense of consistency out of these guys. And it's the same with, dropping Cola, having Effie's, and then not doing anything with him. I feel was a bit of a mistake. This is just one of those football manager kind of signings, I suppose. Oh, Shanks is good. He's a star player. Let's sign him and hope that he can do stuff with the team. I hope the best for him, and I really like some of the other players on NRG, like EU and Daps, but I still feel like this could really bend backwards and really hurt NRG in the long run, with his reputation, with the sense of consistency, I suppose, as well. There's still a lot that remains to be seen with this team, and it's weird considering how Andy Miller was talking about coming into Valorant being very conscious and safe, and if they're going to get involved, to do it and do it right. And really, we haven't seen that at all from NRG, which is a real surprise considering how well they do in other esports.
Yeah, we really haven't seen the results just yet. Sam, you got views on this one?
Really high risk, high reward. I seem to recall one or both of you, I don't remember, in the previous episode talking about how you were really concerned about an org picking
Me.
up Shanks.
It was me.
And like respect levels would just not be there anymore.
It was kind of both of us.
So
But
this is
the thing is,
If he's caught to be match fixing, that's the main
if
thing.
That's
he comes
the
out,
thing, though.
based on the thing is my background, I covered him when he played Counter-Strike, and based on the team he was in, based on what I've heard and rumors of the scene, it is distinctly a concern. Now, that doesn't mean it's definite. We'll find out when the report comes out whether there is evidence of match fixing, but I watched Shanks in games where I scratched my head afterwards and thought, huh. But we will, I don't want to make hard accusations on anything with no evidence and not knowing anything. I just know rumors. I just know what's going on there. At the end of the day, he is a very talented kid.
It's definitely that high risk, high reward play here from NRG, because yes, it could come out that he was part of all of the nonsense, or it could come out that he's totally innocent and now they have like an absolute superstar on their team. And personally, I don't know if I would have taken that risk, but clearly NRG are happy with it. So
I'm gonna be honest, I'm not
we'll
sure
see.
they'll care if he does. Because here's the thing. So they were playing with Effie's as well. Effie's did match fix. He had a match fixing ban on record. He served his sentence. He came back in. Like, he spent a year out of being able to play in any ESEA or ESL related tournament because he match fixed. There was a ban. He served his sentence. So like, I am increasingly getting the opinion that I don't think people are going to care, even if it comes out that these guys match fixed out the wazoo and through games. Like, I am.
Richard Lewis is gonna lose his shit if that
Probably.
happens.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know it.
I'm gonna lose
He's
my
gonna
shit.
go
And
insane.
And I won't get to see it because I'm still blocked.
I
yeah.
am really increasingly just getting the feel that like no one's gonna care. We're gonna get this report eventually. It's gonna be there's gonna be two issues with it. One, it's gonna be way later than it should have been, which is just because ESIC does not have the resources that they ideally should have to pursue these kinds of investigations. But that's a Counter-Strike issue, so I won't talk about it too much on this podcast.
My reputation is too good for Riot to let that down, and I feel that could rub people the wrong way. But I would like to. Riot seek to gain quite a lot if ESIC comes out and says these players have moved over to Valorant have match fixed, and Riot come in and go, we're going to support you with this, we're going to make sure that it's not happening in Riot, and we're going to do something about this. I get that might rub people the wrong way for Riot to get involved in stuff that doesn't really apply to their game, but that kind of thing is contagious. It will make its way across to Valorant, and they need to do their best to stop it. And
Here's
it's
the
great
problem.
PR, and Counter-Strike look worse.
It opens them up to a huge lawsuit. Because there is no legal precedent for banning someone in a game because of their actions in another game. That's not in. I'm sure that's not in Valorant's terms of service.
But
Like, you
isn't
have to
it?
check.
Sorry, hold up. Isn't this one of those like what is the sign on every freaking shop that you walk into?
We can
Right of
refuse
admission
service?
observed.
Not in this
reserved.
instance,
Sorry, right of
because
admission reserved.
They can prove loss of earnings based on the actions. If someone has a signed pro contract and you tell them they can't play the game anymore and they didn't specifically do something to violate your terms of service, I think they have a lawsuit on their hands based on loss of earnings. And that's I don't know the specifics. I am not a lawyer, but I am not sure that this is something that Riot would pursue because I'm not sure that they would have grounds to pursue it. And I think that if they did, they do likely open themselves up to a lawsuit just based on the way America
Probably why
works.
NRG feel comfortable taking the. So they've probably, if this is the case, right? And again, this is pure speculation, people. But if that is the case,
We're going down a rabbit
then
hole
they've
here.
probably weighed that in, and they're just like, well, guilty or not, he's on the team. Riot can't do anything about it. Can TOs though? Can TOs say this player may not participate in our tournament because of actions and other stuff?
I think so, because they're not denying them the right to pursue the game in general. Like, I think TOs can specifically say we won't let this team in.
Yeah.
Which
I
Valve
think doesn't
did.
really affect NRG to like a massive extent because NRG are mostly going to be participating in the official Riot stuff anyway. So yeah, they've kind of weighted up the risk factor that I kind of spoke about before. And like already I'm seeing the kickback from it. There was one dude, I don't know if you guys saw this, after the announcement, there was one dude that was so impassioned. He wrote out one long tweet in response to the post and then just spammed that to everyone that supported it. And he's like, this guy can't be allowed to play. He's a terrible person. He's like really,
This is about
he's
Shanks?
really shitty and whatever. Yeah, it was
Oh,
about
I see
Shanks,
it.
and this dude just like posted it on like every single
I'm not gonna lie,
comment.
I
He was
kinda
so
wanna go find it
impassioned.
now.
So like, there's a little bit of kickback there already, but again, they've probably weighed up the risks and thought, you know what, we'll survive this, and if we start winning and we get tons of money, who cares? So,
Yeah.
I'm sure it was the Shanks thing.
Honestly,
You're making me question myself now.
I'm sorry, I've seen the tweet now. Absolutely disgusted by this pickup. Yeah, okay, I see it.
Yeah.
Guy went off. Went off.
He just commented that on everybody that replied. It's just like,
Isn't that what
Crazy.
Valve did though with like I Buy Power? They just didn't let them participate in majors. Is that something that Riot could do?
Yes. What Valve does is Valve doesn't have direct ownership of anything in the scene, right? Apart from majors. That's the only thing that they're directly involved in. What they did is they banned them. They said they're banned from all competition, the I Buy Power guys. But the only events that Valve is actually involved in are the majors. So they banned them from majors. Everyone else banned them. All the other TOs banned them, and then eventually reversed those bans, or a lot of them did. After like two or 3 years served. But Valve permabans. Valve doesn't. You're either done, you're in or you're out with Valve. They don't mess around with timing on it. But they've also, like, any player who has a VAC ban on record can't compete in a Valve event. So that's like, Jumpy, who's a Finnish player, very talented young Finnish player, got a VAC ban when he was on an account he owned when he was 13. Supposedly, he says he gave it to a friend, and his friend cheated on the account. Either that or he cheated on the account. Regardless, Valve will never let him play in a Valve tournament because of something he did when he was 13. It's ridiculous, but whatever. That's how Valve rolls. They don't mess around with.
but this is the thing, though. Like, it's not even just about that. Okay, so there's stuff that goes on, particularly in Overwatch, and I know this because of 2 years of Overwatch. But you'll have the really young players will say the dumbest shit. All right, they will say some things that will make you go, "Excuse me," and that shit will come out on social media.
Spamming the N-word in Discords and things.
Yeah, like shit like that. And it'll come out on social media. And because they're young, they don't care. Then they turn 16, 17, 18. They realize they will never get onto an OWL team. And they're like, oh, I regret my life choices. And it's just like, first and foremost, all right, from a psychological perspective, you know the difference between right and wrong when you are 7 years old. So don't come with and tell me when you were 13 you didn't know that cheating was wrong. No, I'm sorry. Don't tell me you didn't know that cheating was wrong when you were 13, okay?
You didn't do anything cheating was wrong when I was young. That you would regret when you were 18 in terms of judgment. You're telling me your judgment didn't improve from the age of 13
I regret nothing in
18.
my life. Thank you very much.
I mean,
regret nothing.
That's harsh. I don't know.
If you're trying to like think of a prospective career, but at the same time, right? You're in the scene, so you're playing in tier 2. You're seeing what's happening to other players, and you're still being a dumbass.
But this isn't. He wasn't in tier 2. He was just a kid playing around on Counter-Strike. He tried out hacks, got a VAC ban. And this is we're assuming we don't buy the friend story. And then years later, he's like, "Oh, yo, I could go pro in this game." Like, I don't know. I think there should be statute of limitations on minors. But we're way off on a tangent now. I'm gonna pull us back around. Suffice it to say,
us on a tangent? No.
Shanks is on NRG right now. We will see if that winds up being a good move or not. Whatever it is, he's clearly got talent. We'll see where that goes. On to the next thing. We went off the plot. We went off the reservation. We're in the next zip code on this one. We lost the plot somewhere long ago. All right. Oh no, I pressed the wrong button. There we go. There's the right button.
Oh,
Coach J stepping down from my role as head coach of Renegades Valorant at the end of this month. I want to thank blah 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 blah. Normal thank you tweet. He's leaving the team. I'm gonna be honest. This one is weird to me because I'm gonna take point on this one. I think I don't really get this move. To be quite frank, Renegades pre-Coach J was a terrible team. They were completely irrelevant. They were an afterthought in every tournament they were in. They went out first in most tournaments they were in. Every time we talked about them, we said, well, that was disappointing for Renegades. On to the next thing. Coach J got them to first strike. Man, they didn't change players. Like, they played. The only difference was they started playing together. They had a boot camp, and they had Coach J involved. And they went from being an afterthought in every tournament to making it to first strike. Now, I'm not saying they were suddenly one of the best teams in the region. The fact they made it to first strike was shocking. But they're such a better team now. So the question is, where is this coming from? Does he have a better opportunity? Does he have a better offer?
Oh, 100%. It's got to be, right? There's so many NA teams that don't have a coach that might have the players, but not quite the learnings, I suppose. FaZe is a big one that he could potentially go to. Maybe not the biggest in terms of what this team could do. I'd say that they've done quite a lot regardless.
Dying in the middle here.
Is she okay?
Continue, Ryan. You okay, Sam?
Sam is okay. Carry on. I'm fine.
I think like FaZe have the potential to be a strong team with good leadership like that. Even Sentinels don't quite have a coach at the moment, which could be a pretty big pickup for Coach Jay. There's half a dozen teams I think that he could potentially go to, but all of which are going to be a step up from Renegades. So it sounds like it's a positive move. His last showing as being the coach from Renegades is going to be for this mystery tournament happening sometime this year, still, crazily enough. And so there's still a lot to see there. You're right, though. He's made huge changes with this team without actually changing any of the roster up. Just everybody looks stronger, and they beat Cloud9 to get to First Strike. So it wasn't like they just whimmed their way through. They beat some really strong teams and showed potential, but I'm curious on how that team's going to do without their coach by their side.
Yeah.
Much like a player, if you see them start to pop off, you poach them. A coach is very much behind the scenes, but for people that know what they're looking for, that know what a good coach looks like from just being able to see the progress from within the team, will know how much that had been influenced by the coach, how much that improvement has to do with the coaching style, particularly as you guys have said, they don't change any players. They are simply changing the way that they play and the way that they think about the game and how they, execute and so on. And a lot of that comes down to, yes, obviously players play a massive part. They're the ones on the field. But a lot of it comes down to what is the coach telling them? What is the coach saying to them? So if you can see a team that makes a massive turnaround, because let's face it, if we look back at Renegades 6 months ago, a footnote, an actual footnote in tournaments to where they are now. Yes, the turnaround is absolutely massive. And then you look at teams like Sentinels, TSM, G2. Yes, they're the top of the game, but have they improved? They've just kind of been at the top, right? There's not much movement going on there. And then you look at the other teams that are making their way up, and that's where people are looking. They're trying to find out, how are these teams making those strides? So I think it's more than likely that he hasn't been kicked, that's for sure. You don't kick the guy that's gotten you this far in such a short space of time.
You wouldn't think so.
You wouldn't think. It didn't look like a retirement post.
If they were looking to make changes, it would have been players first.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talent out there. I'm honestly surprised we haven't seen any shifts in players from Renegades. But, yeah. Yet. That's true. I'm surprised they didn't back up the Brinks trucks for him, is really the thing. Because clearly he got an offer from someone, or we're speculating here. He most likely got an offer from someone. But if I'm Renegades, right, like, he took your program from being nothing to being something. Give the man your money. Like, just whatever offer
that's if you have the money to give, man.
That's true. If you don't have the money to give, I
especially if it's well, you said Sentinels didn't have a coach. Now maybe this is being super, hyperbolous, but like, if Sentinels comes down the line and says, "All right, we're offering you this big number," Renegades is like, okay, we can offer you this number and our love and support.
They got the the Jonas Urekbo money. They've got NBA money. Gotta spend it somewhere. No, I'm not sure. They're not. I don't know what they do in other esports, but in CS, at least at this point, they don't have a top flight team. So I could see him moving along. Yeah. I'm just so curious to see where he's going to wind up, because he is clearly. It's hard to measure coach impact in most instances, but I think this is one of the most cut and dry. Like, they were shit before he joined. They were competitive after he left, right? Like, it's night and day. So you're never going to get a more clear measure of coaching success. It's hard to get that litmus test for a lot of teams. This is one where you're like, okay, he knows what he's doing. Let's see what he can do. I don't know.
100%.
Yep.
All right. So let's see. What's our next one? We've got a couple more in a, I'd say tier 2, 3 talks, conversations here. I will call them tier 2. Definitely tier 2-ish. We got. Oh, I'm pressing the wrong button. Don't worry. Everything's
Again.
fine, guys. Everything's fine. I never press the wrong button, ever. I
never cough on an episode, but
definitely not. All right, so we got Decop out of Equinox. That one's a little bit weird. He's pretty good. He's been pretty good for them.
And it sounded like it was an Equinox decision based on his tweet.
Yeah, they cut him.
Like he said, they wanted me gone or whatever. And it's really sad because they, like, you look at Equinox's tweet and they looked really sad about it. They're like, oh no, we have to say goodbye to Decop tier. But like, Decop's like, yeah, they kicked me. I'm out. GG's. We had a good run. Weird.
Has to be.
It's odd. I saw someone, and I don't actually know if this is true. I was not following it, saying that he may have overslept a game during the night's tournament.
Oof. Do you kick someone for oversleeping a game?
I mean, if you're trying to enforce...
I mean, Sentinels kept Zoms after being 10 White Claws in, like...
But I don't even know if that actually happened, because the only person I saw that from was some random rumors account that I have no basis in. Like, I ain't heard nothing about this. It's just very odd to me. It's an odd move. I could see Equinox wanting to make changes because they're sort of at that level where they're competitive in the tier 2, and you never really think they're gonna make the run in tier 1. You really don't. Yeah. You're not looking at this roster and thinking, oh well, they just need a bit more time to make that jump. You're looking at this roster and thinking, yeah, they're probably about where they should be, right?
Yeah.
So I guess changes are necessary. I'm just kind of surprised to see it be Decop.
I think it's more like Equinox since they got picked up as being China win. They just haven't really been able to jump off of that momentum. You know, there's a lot of fears of teams like Summon having the same effect, being really good as an unsigned team, but as soon as they get picked up, they can't necessarily do the work. I do find a more interesting one, considering we were talking about NRG earlier, is the other tier 2 change with Exceed going to Knights. How good did Exceed look? And it's the typical ninjas in pajamas having Ryan scenario where Zipan even, where Zipan on Nip was playing like the Omen or something ridiculous and didn't do that well. But as soon as he went onto another roster to put him on a duelist, he absolutely tore it up. And Exceed is the same here with Knights. It does make you think, what the hell is going on with NRG when they have a player like that they left out to dry at the end of the Nerd Street Gamers qualifiers for First Strike, and then he goes onto a new team and does a lot of work. It does raise more questions to me about NRG as opposed to Knights who have picked up Exceed. So, interested to think about more than anything.
I think that the real thing that to really look at in that case is like, if you want to take a player and put them onto an agent that they're more comfortable on, you then have to take the player who's playing that agent and put them somewhere else. So there's a lot of shuffling that has to happen there. And maybe they just felt like whoever they had was better than what Exceed would have brought to the table if he changed up, potentially. And so you make a calculated decision. Whether or not that's going to pay off, we have yet to find out. But yeah, those changes can be instrumental and can be monumental, like in a case like with Zipan, like you said. But sometimes a team just feels like, this is what we need. We need these players. And sometimes it's not even about the agent. Because now you want to put this player onto a different agent to suit their playstyle more. But maybe the player, if we look at like the Meadows situation where Meadows' playstyle didn't really fit in with the rest of the team. So now you're kind of rearranging your whole team to get a player onto an agent that they're better on, but maybe the playstyle still wouldn't have suited. So there's always like those factors that have to go into it. The big question is going to be, how do you make up for that deficit now? Who do you bring in to replace so that you can maintain a good level and potentially grow now that you've lost what could have been a phenomenal player?
So let me give some context on Exceed, because I've known Jack for a while now.
You're so good at context, Mike.
Always been a fan. Well, I mean, look, all these guys coming from like the NA scene of CS, this is what I do. I've known these kids for years now. Like, I've watched them grow up. Like, I'm invested in these guys on an emotional level. Because I've known them, I've known some of them since their parents were bringing them to LANs, right? Like, that's the level that I know some of these people at.
That's adorable.
And Exceed is one who I've known since he was like 17. I don't know even how old he is right now, but like, I've seen Jack at a lot of different LANs. He is a bowling ball. You throw him at a site and he will smash it open. He is so mechanically skilled. He used to post these Osu clips. I don't know if he does that anymore. But the things that the man can do in terms of raw aim and like mouse movement, not human. It's bizarre. But he's never been the most cerebral of players. Back in Counter-Strike, he was I remember one of his coaches talking to me at one point. He's like, if you just throw him at a site and tell him to kill people, he will kill people. If you make him buy utility and run set strats, he's gonna fall apart. So we just don't let him buy utility, and he goes and kills, and everyone else throws the smokes and the flashes, right? Like,
Exceed, go kill.
that was a while
Yeah,
ago. That was when he
basically.
was younger. I'm sure he's matured since then, and his brain has grown a little bit. But like, that was absolutely the way he played, which was when he was on a duelist type role, an entry or a second player in, where his job was to click heads, his job was to kill people. He's excellent at that. He is perfect at that. When you start to complicate it, when you want him to be doing things like pulling off the lurk or playing in late or playing off of a teammate or setting up a teammate, that's where he's had issues in the past. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily still an issue, because again, he's grown since then. He's gotten older, he's matured, brain's developed, I'm sure. But he is so mechanically skilled. So I'm not surprised that since they're putting him in this role where they're like, all right, this is the guy we're bringing in to be our star fragger. Like, this is the guy we're bringing in to pop off. And we are going to set him up to pop off and facilitate it. That is where a player like Exceed shines. He will, if you want a guy to walk into a site and kill 3, Exceed is your man, right? Like, that is what he does. He is one of the most fun players to watch in terms of those highlight clips where you're just like, all right, he's going into a situation he shouldn't win. Let's see him kill everybody. Boom. Yeah. He's going to do it. Like, he's reliably going to get 2-3 kills in any fight. So I'm so happy to see him in a situation where he can pop off, where he can show what he had. He's been out of, apart from that trial with NRG, he hasn't really been on a team in a long time. That goes back to Counter-Strike as well. Like, he kind of, I think, got a bit of a reputation in the scene where he just wasn't getting a whole lot of opportunities. Like, people didn't want to play with him. I don't know exactly what the circumstances were, but it was a bummer to see, because I've known and I know and I continue to know what kind of things he can do when he's given a chance to pop off. So I am super happy to see him crushing it on the Knights. And I do think he's the kind of player where if you make a focal point of your team Exceed killing everybody, he's gonna kill everybody. So watch out. I think the Knights could be ready to take that next step with the addition of Exceed. I'm excited. This is one of these guys who I've seen at LANs for so long that it's just like, I want him to get his opportunities. There's a few of these guys where I've known them for too long. Want them to do well. And he's a nice kid. That's the other thing. He's a nice kid. He's a genuinely nice kid. I've always enjoyed my interactions with him at LAN. So good people having good opportunities. It's what we like to see. Isn't that the spirit of Christmas, folks?
Oh my God. We've come full circle.
And it's perfect to come full circle now because we're about to hit the hour mark on live time.
Hey.
So
we did it.
We're going to wrap up as per the usual. Way long. I thought we were going to be on time at the beginning of this. And then
hell no, please.
Just went out the window. But thank you all for tuning in. I think we're going to do one next week. I'm not actually sure. Do we squeeze one more in I don't even know what the date is. Yeah, next Wednesday would be the 30th. So if we're going to do that, we'll have one more in 2020. Otherwise, we'll see you all in 2021. Thank you for tuning in. If you're celebrating the holiday, have a very happy holiday. If you're not, have a very happy not a holiday. Have a good one, everybody. We'll see you next time. Adios.
Have a good holiday, bye.